Discuss. My name is Damlola Ogunshakin. In the studio with me today is Udeme Akpan, is the energy editor of Vanguard newspaper. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
When the new president was inaugurated, he
Mm.
just said one statement: subsidy is gone, and we all had all the old long queues and everything. And a new document was released yesterday, which contained the prices of the fuel in different parts of Nigeria. Can you tell us more about that?
I think, like every other Nigerian observed, it was unprecedented because to most Nigerians, they expected something very mild, something very welcoming, something very reassuring, But the president decided to drop what has come to be a bombshell, you know. But Nigerians are waking up gradually to the reality of the fact that whether it is now or later, is something that should have been done. But for me, and in most people in the industry, um, it wasn't really a very pleasant way to go because this is something should have that happened much earlier and a very mild, mature, civil way. You know, uh, most people are familiar with the petroleum industry bill, which eventually was processed or made to become an act, what we now call Petroleum Industry Act. It's a comprehensive legislation. All the issues we are battling with are contained in that document. In fact, for me, President Buhari, the former president, succeeded in passing the petroleum industry bill into an act, but he failed to implement it. If the act was fully implemented, we wouldn't have come to this because Nigerians were fully aware of the contents of the act. They knew very well that in the downstream, subsidy eventually have to go because this legislation stipulates that the industry will have to be deregulated. And once the regulation takes place, nobody will be discussing about subsidy anymore because it was going to push the industry or that sector of the industry towards a market-driven regime. So subsidy would have was supposed to go naturally without even anybody discussing it, because all we needed was for the former president to say, yes, we now have a comprehensive document, a new law. Yes, we are going to implement it. He succeeded in setting up the two regulators, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission and also his counterpart in the downstream. He succeeded in appointing the CEOs into those agencies. He succeeded in moving the movement of staffing the agencies, either through transfer from somewhere in government or direct appointment of top industry leaders to fill the different positions. Nigerians expected the former government to go further and say, yes, we are going to implement this law. But at the end of the day, Buhari said, we leave that one for the incoming government. President Tinubu will handle that. We are on our way out. So we don't need to discuss fuel subsidy. It's something that could have died naturally because most industry leaders who put their money into the business, either from foreign countries or domestic investors, it came to a point where it was very obvious that subsidy was bound to die because no businessman, no financier will come into the sector to put in huge investments when you are not sure of what will come out of it. When you are not sure that the government will cease to be the one deciding things, by fiat. So most people wanted a system that can regulate itself, and PIA was a way forward.
So is this going to help the economy with what you are saying now?
Obviously, what happens currently is that Nigerians are going to feel the pain in a very short time. There will be very negative impacts on very poor families, very poor households, very poor businesses who didn't plan for it, at least at this time. But we would like, I, as a close observer, would like to advise the government that you don't single out, you don't implement PIA selectively as you like. Rather, embrace the old document and let us a systemic way of implementing it until it's concluded. So the PIA will come forward with the regulation. The regulation will attract more investments. It will going to create more multiplier effects in the downstream, because that will lead to creation of more jobs, creation of different kinds of things, capacity building, technology transfer. All this will come in the long run, but in the short term, there will have to be sacrifices. So Nigerians will need to prioritize. For instance, if you have 10 cars, maybe you can say, I will only drive one or two. Or if you have many friends going to a certain destination at the same time, maybe you can do pooling, like people do overseas. No need for everybody to jump into different cars and start driving. Everybody can come into one car and then you go to save the cost. So a lot of things will have to change. For instance, if you use a lot of generator generating your own power through fuel, you can say, okay, I will on my generator maybe 1 or 2 hours a day instead of just burning the whole night. So there's a way the system will make people to cut costs through when you prioritize properly. You're going to still cut costs. But it's also a lesson that house individuals and families and businesses can do a lot more. Maybe to generate more income, additional income, to cut costs, and to a lot of things can be done. But I think it is in the best interest of everyone, especially investors, especially households, especially the economy and the federal government, that we deregulate the sector. The regulation must be total. It shouldn't be selective. You can't just go. The PIA has said everything about the different aspects of the industry, and then you go to pick one single item and say we are not going to subsidize. What about gas flaring? What about different other things we need to do to be able to carry the whole?
What are some of those things that you think they really need to do? That's very
what the government needs to do is to encourage more investment. Already, the nation's petroleum reserves have been standing at about 37 billion barrels for so many years. We need to encourage more investment for people to go into direct oil and gas exploration. This is going to lead to the making of new oil finds. Even outside the Niger Delta, that has been a traditional area of operations for most companies. So we need to increase investment, make more new findings, grow our reserves, and then even produce more. Whenever OPEC will now call us, so Nigeria, we need you to up the game. We should have no difficulty increasing production, and that is how we earn more forex into the economy. So a lot of things should be done. In the area of gas flaring, the regulator, the commission had done about 1 or 2 biddings in recent times. Those things were not fully subscribed for. So we need to look at and motivate different ways and means which the government can be able to motivate new investors, even direct foreign investment and other things into that sector to grow the business. We have just been stagnant because for many years, most investors, even financiers, foreign banks, organizations were not interested putting their money in Nigeria because there was no clear way in which they could have been assured that if you invest in Nigeria, you can be able to get your returns, even in medium term or long term. A lot of things were not in place. But with the new legislation, at least there's hope. But the government should be very intentional about it by going forward to ensure that these things are implemented. When these things are implemented and seem to be implemented, honestly, most people will start to have confidence building as far as Nigeria's economy is concerned. So the world is watching.
all right. Nigerians and some people hope that Dangote refineries will help reduce the prices of fuel. Do you think Dangote refinery will help a little in this case?
I think to a great extent, Dangote In fact, let me comment Dangote to start with. It's not easy to have that size of investment in a country like Nigeria. If you have been to the plant, 650,000 barrels per day plant is not a joke. It is something that you commended. So, with this level of investment in the downstream, we look forward to that refinery meeting at least a greater part of their domestic demand. But it may not be in the short term. Why? Because as a refinery, we are not going to do 650,000 barrels per day in one day. You can't just start. There will be a kind of growing in your capacity. A Dangote can be a stream today to start with, let's say, 200 barrels per day. Over time, you increase your production to 300, 400, 500. We keep on going. Maybe within a year, 2 or 3, you can get to your maximum level of production. But during this period, you cannot say you do 650,000 barrels in one day. It will be a gradual thing, but it will impact on the economy because it's going to reduce our own expenses. The way we roll out money and start importing fuel, we are going to conserve a lot of foreign exchange. We are going to also generate money because Dangote refinery is not going to be targeted at only meeting domestic demand. It will also be exporting to the global market. So you can see large inflow of money coming to a country. And the plan too is also opening up to employ many Nigerians. Training, capacity building, technology transfer. A lot will have to come from there. And we've also noticed that it's not only about petroleum production or refining. That refinery is also into fertilizer and other byproducts of petroleum processing. So it's going to be something very huge and it's going to make a very strong statement as far as the economy of Nigeria is concerned.
But you know what the Nigerians right now want to know is, will he reduce the price of when it's down?
Well, it's not likely. Nigerians should not think that way. It may happen, but it will be very minimal. Why we shouldn't expect it to be huge gap is that the Dangote as an investor is not going to get the crude oil free from the federal government. It will still be buying at the same rate that crude is going for at the international market. You understand? So the cost of production can drop because of logistics. Logistics of bringing the product from overseas will not more be applicable. So the final cost of fuel can drop, but it will not be very significant for us to say, no, let's enjoy this product is from us. It's a right to enjoy these products. Dangote, you have to take small money. No, it's in business. He has taken a lot of money from different organizations in Nigeria, banks and all that to finance the projects. So those monies will have to be paid back. You have to be paid back. So it's not doing. It's not a Father Christmas. It's a businessman.
So I guess we have to take our mind away from there. But I would also like you to talk on this one. The fact that when the documents were released yesterday, we saw that Lagos State had the least price, 488 naira, while we had some other states paying as high as 557 naira per liter for fuel. Why is there a difference this price?
Okay. In an economy like Nigeria, all the states cannot pay the same price. Why? Because of the logistics. The fuel will still have to come from the standard market to Papa ports. It's coming in from the global market. The ships are coming in, the vessels are coming to discharge at the Papa. So Lagos will have to pay less because the investors, operators wouldn't need to truck the products to the north. So we have it here in our own environment, and that makes it cheaper. But if you were to deploy trucks, tankers to take the products from Lagos to Borno State or Yobe, you can see the cost implication, and somebody has to pay for it. You understand? So that is basically explains why some states will have to pay more and why some states are going to pay less. But if you look at the table released yesterday, you realize that most states in the south, the prices are generally a bit low. But for most states in the north, they are going to pay more because of this kind of consideration. It's a function of distance and proximity to the ports.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. I would like you to talk about electricity. Now, according to the president, he said he's going to support each state in generating their own electricity. How is this going to work and help the states?
Okay. You realize that for a very long time, even up till now, Nigeria is facing a lot of energy crisis at the petroleum front, at the electricity front, and different, So we are into a lot of prolonged energy crisis. So, and in the power sector, it was highly centralized. The federal government dominated almost everything. The agencies of government, NEC, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, they are the one regulating at the national level. And then the DISCOs, the GENCOs, everybody, they report to the federal government. So the federal government has been the sole determinator of everything in the power sector. And over the years, the states, even the local government, have been complaining that this Power Act needs to be amended. And with the amendment of the Act recently, the states have been empowered or recognized to come in and start playing their own roles. So the implication is that many states will now have the authority to play active roles in the power sector than before. They have more power to set up their power companies. They even have more power to set up regulatory agencies to regulate power generation, transmission, and distribution in their own different entities. So it is something that is welcoming. I have discussed with many industry leaders, and they see this as a way of bringing more investments into the sector. In fact, in a short term, I discussed with some industry leaders who said that they expect to see at least $10 billion inflow as investment into that sector. So it is huge. And a long term, it can be more. If you have the states, especially those that have adequate capacity, a state like Akwa Ibom has huge resources. A state like Delta, they have huge resources. A state like Lagos, they have huge resources. And they have been showing interest in power sector for a long time. So this act will now enable them to come in and do more. And there's no restriction whatsoever.
Do you support the subsidy removal?
Well, I don't always like to discuss fuel subsidy, but I like to discuss deregulation because it is more embracing, it is more encompassing. If you say fuel subsidy removal, you are just picking one item out of everything that's involved in the regulation, which is more embracing. So it is something everybody should welcome. Like I said, the regulation is a way forward because the investors, the financiers, the operators, and all other stakeholders, they want a market-driven environment to do business. And once you have a market-driven environment, you see even the financiers, the banks, will trust the operations in that sector. You remember, it got to a point, the Central Bank of Nigeria even issued a statement warning all the banks that they should be very careful with the discourse. You understand? I'm going to give you an example. So if the banks don't trust this is a particular sector, Central Bank can warn those operators in that system. Be careful because these people cannot be trusted to pay back. And that is why some companies, even in the power sector, are owing the bank so much. But that is not completely the case in the downstream sector. But the industry has to be fully deregulated. So every party will now have confidence to do business, either with local investors or foreigners. Apart from that, you wouldn't have that confidence because you can be afraid. What if you go into a meeting with somebody today and as you're concluding the meetings here, government policy can destroy that business. A government policy can pave the way for your business to grow. The next the same government can issue another policy, a directive, and the business is dead. So people don't trust that kind of environment. Yes.
All right. Any other thing that you need to tell us of?
Well, my parting word will be that Nigerians should not lose hope. Nigerians should not lose hope. There's hope as far as they are alive. Keep hope alive. Find a way to cut costs. Find a way to increase your earnings. That's the way forward.
Find a way to talk to cut costs. Thank you, Udeme Akpan, for that report. And this is where we have to draw the curtain. My name is Damlola Okmushaki. Do well to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. Have a lovely day.